Hey, all right. It looks like we're doing okay tonight. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I hope you had a great weekend. I am adjusting the cords and things, so if you hear a bunch of noise, it's just me. So do me a favor, as soon as you get here, check in with me. Let me know that you're here. I am just a dude hanging out, and I cannot tell who's in the room and who's not in the room. Hello, Don Ledger. Congratulations, you're the first one in today and the first one in for the week. So congratulations to Don. Hello, Logan Calcaterra. Glad to see that you're here. You guys are going to like this conversation. I'm going to try to keep it light as I possibly can. The existential threat. Do we have an existential threat in the United States of America? I didn't think about this a lot, but I did make a bunch of notes, and I read them today. And while everybody else is coming into the room, I'm going to just going to let you know it's the existential threat that's facing America. So, alrighty, we ready to go? Hello, Sherry. Hello, Don. I had a great weekend, my friend. I'm back here in Arkansas, so it was a great weekend. All right, so hey, let's do this. All right, 5. Oh, wait a minute. At the end of this little solo part. By the way, I am so glad that you're here. I hope you had a great weekend too. Everybody, welcome to Mickey in the Middle. My name is Mickey. This is Mickey in the Middle, and it's the quintessential show for Middle Americans. The Middle Americans. Let me explain who we are. We're Middle Americans. We're nothing fancy. We just worked hard our entire life. We've set ourselves up for a little bit of success. Most of us have phones. Most of us have a car. Most of us have a roof over our head. Most of us have food in the belly. The pandemic has been beating down Middle America, but we still have the American spirit. We still have hope for the future. We are optimistic beyond belief because that's who Americans are. We've raised our children to be that way. Our parents, you're going to think that this is crazy, right? But our parents used to be mean to us all the time. I'm a Middle American, right? So our parents didn't want you to take credit for anything, right? They wanted you to grow up, get a job, work hard, put food on your table, make sure your kids had their nose wiped and that your kids were respectful whenever they went out. Our parents had some pretty strict standards, you know, like no elbows on the table. My dad once hit me in high school. I didn't realize I sat down at the dinner table with a hat on, and he hit me right here with the back of his hand, and it knocked me into the back of my seat and knocked my hat off, and he said, well, I guess that's the last time we're going to be wearing a hat at the table. And I was like, that's pretty right. Yeah, I guess I won't be doing that anymore. So the other night, we were... Man, I can't even remember where we were. Oh, no, we were at Cafe USA after church, Saturday night. And so we're sitting there talking. So we go to church, and then we go to dinner at Cafe USA, which is right here in Bossier City, Louisiana on Barksdale Boulevard. Great little cafe. And we get a couple of beers, and we have a little bit of dinner. And as the server brought over our food and put it on the table, my dad and I took off our hats, grabbed our beer, took some beer together. I was mirroring him, not out of mockery, but I just realized that as we were halfway through, I had done this. So I put down the beer and I bowed my head and I said, thanks, God. Because that's the way that I pray before I eat. I don't need to make it big and fancy. I just need to say, I appreciate the fact that I have food in my belly. So I said, thanks, God. And I look up, and my dad kept his head down for a couple of more seconds. And then he looked up, and then we went to eat without further words. But I just thought that it was unusual that we both took our hats off, we put them down, we grabbed a beer, took a beer, said a prayer, and started eating. But the hat came off because the way that our parents, who are now in their 60s and 70s and 80s, 90s, they raised children a lot differently than our generation. The older generation either didn't have TV when they were kids, or they only had 3 channels when they were kids. And the world is accelerating faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. And it's putting a lot of pressure on the kids that we have today because you always got to keep up with the Joneses. You always have this go thing, right? So everything is in school is for a purpose so that you can go to college, so you can go to college, so you can go get a job, so you can work for the man, so that you can get some money in your 401, 501, 601k or whatever the heck that thing is, so that you can put money so that you can live the good life. And here's what the thing is. Most of us are living the good life. We're not worried about, as far as middle Americans go, we have a lot of food security in the United States of America. We have an excess of food. So even if you can't provide for yourself, churches and food banks and the city and, there's a lot of different programs where you can go get food. Now, I'm not talking about the people on the street that are not middle Americans, right? So everybody has this different level. But what our parents taught us is that there are enemies in the world, and you have got to defend yourself against those enemies in the world. And I was like, what do you mean enemies in the world? And then I was in Okinawa, Japan, and I got beat up by a bunch of Marines. And I found out what the threat to bodily injury actually was. I was in the military for 30 years, so I saw a lot of things throughout the globe. And I personally have been beat up on numerous occasions. And that changes somebody. That changes your attitude. It makes you humble when you have your ass whipped, right? And that's what the idea of whipping children is. So I used to go to timeout with my daughter, right? So if my daughter got put in timeout, I would find a reason to be in timeout with her because I didn't want to beat her. I didn't want to spank her, but I had to get in her head somewhere to convey messages. So what I did is when I went in to time out with her, I did not go in for the same offense. Sometimes I did, but like throwing a ball in the house or running or whatever. So we would go into timeout together. And it was like a couple of cons in prison. And I'd be like, hey, what are you in for? And she'd be like, I didn't clean my room. And I'd be like, oh, that's tough, man. I was running in the house on the other side. And mom caught me, and she threw me in timeout. Because when your mom sends you to timeout and sends me to timeout, she's trying to teach us valuable lessons. So what do you think your timeout is about? That I should be more responsible and that I should clean my room. And I'd be going, oh, yeah. That sounds like a thing. That sounds like being more responsible is actually a good way to go through life and learn that lesson that when your mom asks you to clean your room, you should clean your room. And then she'd go, what are you in for? And I'd be going, oh, well, that whole running thing. We have a rule in the house, no running in the house. Now, you can walk fast, but I exceeded the speed limit. And she'd be like, well, what did you learn from that? And I'd be like, that I need to take my time. That way I don't hurt myself and I don't break things in the house. And I'm in here with you. I wonder how long we're going to be in here, and I'm like, man, I hope we're not in here, and then I would repeat myself like 2 or 3 times. And over time, I got my message across to my daughter on a lot of different jail time philosophies, if you would. One of the things that I talked about was the danger that is in our world, about the danger of doing things that might not seem like it's that big a deal, but are really dangerous for you. Like, so reaching up on the stove to grab a pot, that will get your hand smacked and a loud yell if I'm it's going to get a loud yell from me, and it's going to get a slap on the hand because the danger level is really, really high. And I'm telling you this is because I think that when I was talking about an existential threat, that's what the show is about today. The show is about an existential threat to the United States of America. And I couldn't believe that I thought about it in this term. But I did. Do you know what the greatest threat to the United States of America is? It's going to be weird, right? Optimism. Optimism is the biggest existential threat to the United States of America. We have an entire generation coming up that are optimists. They see the world and they see the possibilities of the world where everybody has free energy, where everybody has food, where everybody has education, where everybody has medical care, where everybody has a fulfilling life, where everybody can raise a family in peace, where we all live together in harmony, where we all live in one united world. And we can all live in peace. The problem is us older people know better. But we raised these optimists. We raised the optimist. And we told them, hey, you have to stand up for what is right. Because what we learned, right? So I'm a baby boomer. What we learned from the greatest generation, is that heroism matters. That you have got to stand up to the huge threats in the globe. You got to fight for what's right. You got to fight for what's yours. You got to be able to carve yourself out a piece of this world that nobody messes with. And you got to be tough enough to do that. And you got to be able to get your family, you got to be able to dig in, and you got to be able to work hard, work the land, work your job, work your steel industry, work whatever you're doing to be tough. And we did that. That's what we got from the greatest generation. So then when the baby boomers hit, we were like, wow, I get you. I get the 3 channels on TV. I get the fact that there's an existential threat and that there might be nuclear bombs coming in and that we're in a Cold War and that Russia is bad and that communism is bad and the Korean War kicked off in 1950 and then in the 60s we had the Vietnam War and then in the early 80s, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83. All right, so since 1989, okay, so before that, so 89, 87, right? So Panama started. We had the Iran-Contra affair. Then the Berlin Wall came down, right, in 1989, I think it was. So in 88, 89, the Berlin Wall came down, and we set that free, and then Yugoslavia and Kosovo happened, right? But all of those wars became very, very distant to our children. We protected our children at all costs. We sent our warriors in an ever-ending shrinking military. We sent them to foreign lands, and then the news didn't come back because we wanted to protect our children. And then 9/11 hit. Well, guess what? 9/11, my daughter was an infant. When I talk infant, so 9/11 happened in 1991. 91? No, 2001, 2011. 2011? 2000. 2001, right? Whenever 9/11 happened, she was like 3 or 4. There you go. So that's my timing's right. So early 2000, 9/11 happened. So my daughter was 4 years old then. So the crazy thing about my daughter being 4 years old, is now she's 22, and although she knew her dad was gone, she doesn't understand the existential threat that could come from other places in the globe. Because we haven't really heard anything from Russia. We just heard that, hey, we whooped the Afghan Taliban, and that we whooped Iraq, and now we're all good right here. We're all good, right? So we raised up kids in prosperity. Right? We raised up kids in prosperity and a little bit of excess, and they all got phones, and they all got cars, and they all went to college, and they all have this, and so they have this great optimism, and they're like, oh, look here, my mom and dad told us to not be prejudiced, because that's what our message was, right? Our message came out of the 1960s, and the baby boomers that came out of the 1960s were actually the ones that were responsible for teaching the millennials that you cannot have prejudice in the world. Right, so we started off with prejudice. In the early 1900s, women got the right to vote. In the late 1800s, the slaves were freed. In the 1920s, women got the right to vote. In the 1960s, racial desegregation occurred. In the 1990s, the Americans with Disability Act was passed, and then in the early 2000s, gay marriage went to the Supreme Court, and of course the Supreme Court is going to go, yeah, everybody's equal. You can go love whoever you want to love, right? Because all things considered, everybody's equal in the United States of America, and from the federal level, right? From the federal level, that is true. Everybody's supposed to be equal. It says it, right? All men are created equal, certain unalienable rights. Only they didn't know that those words, the one word men, should have been changed to all people, right? But they were dealing in a different time. So all people are created equal, certain unalienable rights. Well, we raised our kids to be optimists. But the thing is that if you raise an optimist and you raise them in an environment where they are heroes, then they only fight what they can see and what they can understand. I want you to understand that. They only can fight what they see and what they can understand. So that if somebody tells them that there's a racial minority that is being discriminated against, or if they come up with a certain narrative that says, hey, look here, people of color are being abused by the police department, they're all going to stand up for that. They're all going to stand up for that. They're all going to go, that is wrong. And then they go, well, who's to blame for this? Well, the people that set up the system, your mom and dad and your grandma and your grandpa, who were racist and who believed in beating people. Did you see the pictures of Selma, Alabama, when they were hosing the people down that were protesting? Did you know that black people couldn't drink out of the white water fountains? Did you know that we had to send in the military in order to get the kids to go to school in Little Rock, Arkansas? So they get pictures, they get little bitty glimpses of the history instead of the big history. They get glimpses, and then they're told to be a hero and to fight injustice. And we have been fighting injustice the entire time. So I was born in 1962. I've been fighting injustice my entire life. And I'm sure that you have too. Because as far as I'm concerned, the baby boomers, the millennials, and Gen Z are all on the same side. And that's where Mickey in the 401k. Sorry, Don, I just saw that. Oh, all right. So, hi, Susie. How you doing? Hello, Mark Calcaterra. How you doing? So yes. So it's a 401k. Thank you very much. Good evening, Bruce Lund. How you doing? Good evening from Alaska. Moose Down Saturday. Hanging in the garage. Aging. That's what I'm talking about. That is unbelievably awesome. Man, I wish I could come up and see it. Do me a favor, send me a picture. Post one if you got one. I don't know whether you can or not. Sounds more like socialism. Mark Calcaterra, you're correct. Right? You're 100% correct. Sounds a lot like socialism. But it's not socialism. Right? They only want justice because they don't understand what socialism is. Somebody has given them a line of BS about what socialism is supposed to be like. And they go, oh, no, not the bad kind of socialism, the good kind of socialism where we all get along and we all have food and we all have medicine and we all have education and we all have families and we all have good jobs and we all contribute to the goodness of the earth. What high ideals, what optimism, what incredible thoughts that our young people are having, that we should get rid of discrimination and that nobody should be left behind and that we should raise our society to the point where we all can prosper by the work of everyone. But they miss a lot of things. So this is what got my attention. So they miss a lot of things. Right? They miss the fact that they're lied to by the media. And then they go, oh, well, that's not that big a deal. You know, everybody tells a white lie every now and then. You know, and, Trump was an asshole. So that excuses all of the stuff that they said about him. And, when they said that the Charlottesville comments were racist, and they didn't show them the entire clip, where Trump was like, hey, look here, there were good people on both sides. And I'm not talking about the neo-Nazi, Marxist, white supremacist people. He literally said it in the same breath. I am not talking about the neo-Nazi, white supremacists. But they didn't hear that, right? They only heard the first part. So they're like, oh, that guy's an asshole. So that's it, man. He's a racist forever. 52 beauty pageants contestants have accused him of touching their boobs. He's never gone to court over any of that. Right? He's 70 years old. He's never been to court over any of that. He's been accused of a lot of stuff, but nobody goes to court. Right? So now I've got a person in my life that is totally convinced that he is a sexual predator in the White House. And because they're going, hey, look here, man, I'm a hero. I got to be a hero. I got to defend all of the women in the world against this guy because he is bad. Are you getting what I'm putting down? Do you understand the connection where the young people are coming from? Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to stand up for the right thing, but they're getting the wrong message, so they're getting confused because they're just like the millennials. They're just like the baby boomers. The baby boomers went to war. The generation, the greatest generation, went to war. The baby boomers went to war. The millennials actually went to war, but the military was shrinking so fast and so hard due to sequestration and budget cuts and philosophy that we needed to get smaller and more agile, that less people had skin in the game. So when you have 50% of the country's men go to war in World War I and World War II, and now you have less than 3% of the total force, less than 3% of the military, less than 3% of the entire population of the United States of America has served in the military. 3, right? And that's guard, active, that's the guard, the reserve, the active duty. Less than 1% are in the military or in active duty. And we can't do it without the guard, we can't do it without the reserve, right? But there's so many people that don't know. So when you tell them about the Taliban, or you tell them about any other existential threat like China or Russia or India or the world as we know it, they miss it. They just don't get it. And that's one of the problems, right? So here's what I wrote down, right? They have a hope for a great future, faith in humans to do the right thing. And they want humans to do the right thing despite evidence to the contrary. To the contrary, right? Hey, Jennifer Barton, Martin, how you doing? I'm telling you what, I'm looking forward to open up those Christmas presents you sent me. So Mark, we get to socialism, but I'm not going to talk about socialism tonight because there's a whole bunch of things that can be done to raise everyone in the world up. The first thing is better politicians that make better policies, that consider all things. Like Generation Z, these are the things that they don't consider. They don't consider that China is bad, that they steal intellectual property, that they guard the information that the citizens have, that they cut deals with Google, they cut deals with Apple, they cut deals with Microsoft to control what they say and what the language is used, and that if they do not like what you say, they will imprison you. Go look at the number of people. Give this to all of the Generation Z that you see. Go and give it to Gen Z and give it to all the millennials and just go, hey, have you looked up China human rights record? There's no excuse for that. You're buying, you're up on TikTok, which was a Chinese app, giving them billions and billions of dollars, and they just as soon kill you as to take you to dinner. And here's the deal is, if you say something contrary to what their belief is, they will kill you. Or they will imprison you forever. So they don't understand that it's a big deal that China is infiltrating all of our businesses, infiltrating every level of our government, infiltrating every aspect of our lives so that they can prosper and bring us down, because they seriously believe that when they are on top and we are on our knees, that is the best economic advantage for China. Somebody broke into cyber security, and Solar Wind was the name of the company. They infiltrated 425 of the top 500 Fortune 500. 425 of the 500 Fortune 500 top companies. The Fortune 500, 425 of them got a cyber attack, and they have no idea what they did. They don't know whether they left some bad viruses in there. They don't know whether they got malware in there. They don't know whether they just took intellectual property. And these were 425 of the largest 500 companies in the United States of America. The list included all four branches of the military. The Department of Energy, which has got all of our nuclear capabilities and all of our nuclear stuff. It infiltrated commerce, states, cities. I imagine pro football teams. Why would somebody do that? You got to ask Generation Z, why would somebody do that? If they did not mean us harm. You think that they just went and infiltrated 425 of the largest companies in the world just to look around and go, hey, how you doing? Everything's great. Or do you think they got it to figure out our satellite technology and how we communicate and how our GPS system works, or our latest fighters and how to defeat those in a war, or what's going on with our submarines, or what's going on with the aircraft carriers, or how do we operate our nuclear capacity so that in an instant they could turn off all the cooling mechanisms for all the nuke plants in the United States of America, and all of the nuke plants would blow up. It's dangerous world. It's dangerous world, and they're acting like lying doesn't matter, like infiltration doesn't matter, like having spies in Spalwell's office doesn't matter. That taking an election with suspect machines, or ballots that can't be counted, or processes that are broken, or politicians that lie to you, or newspapers that lie to you, and CNN and MSNBC and CBS and Fox News and all the rest of those media sources that they lie to you, that is a big ass deal. Huge. And the fact that they go, oh, oh, look at that poor woman of color. It's beyond that. It's beyond the woman of color or the trans man or the disenfranchised immigrant or the disenfranchised illegal immigrant. This is an existential threat to the United States of America. China wants to do you harm. It's a big deal. Soviet Union wants to do you harm. You want to know why? Because their leader has figured out a way to get himself elected to 2035 or 2036. You really think that the people of Soviet Union want Vladimir Putin to be in charge until 2036? I mean, he does look good with his shirt off. I mean, I gotta give him that. Dude riding a horse, looking solid. Right? But these are the things that go through my head. That the greatest threat to us is our optimism? Somebody had once said, who's going to defend the nation if nobody wants to defend the nation? Because they're so busy defending themselves from other Americans. They go, oh, you have said something hateful. Oh, that will not work for me. I did not like the way you phrased that. Or, hey, look here. You are discriminating against people that work. Well, here's the reason why I'm hiring people is I'm hiring people so that they can work the business so that we can keep the economy going so that I can feed my family. So when I ask somebody to work, it's not really discriminating against somebody. That's just asking them to work. Because everybody has to put food on the table. I came up with a theory earlier today about the condition of the United States of America and why we have got to trust each other. We've got to trust each other because we cannot make good decisions unless we have good information. So, every single time that somebody says, I have all the information that I need to make a decision on something, go, have you asked me? And do we see eye to eye? And until we see eye to eye, you don't have enough information and I don't have enough information. So ask people that. Just ask people that. Say, do you have all of the information? And they go, yes, I do. Then do you have the information that I have? Because I think that is what the problem is right now. So the young people are not asking, Gen Z is not asking the millennials are not asking the baby boomers are not asking the greatest generation. The greatest generation has nothing to do with Gen Z. The baby boomers don't want to talk to Gen Z, and Gen Z doesn't want to talk to the baby boomers. The millennials are kind of stuck in the middle because they're kind of, they're kind of like halfway between the people that grew up without technology and the people that grew up with technology. So they are like dead in the center of understanding, right? So they're a split generation somewhere right around 1990. Because right around 1990 is when what happened in the late 80s and early 1990s, that's when the internet was born. You got to remember, Apple was born in the 1990s, and Google didn't come around till the early 2000, and you got to remember that those companies are only 15 or 20 years old. And now all of a sudden they're controlling the conversation. They are controlling the conversation. And the thing is that we need to control the conversation, but we need to do it in a way that we can communicate our ideas to other people without just saying blatantly, you're wrong. We have to understand why they have the information wrong. And you can say it's the school system. You can say it's the millennials' fault. You can say that there's this, but that means that we need to get more involved. Greg Myers said, hey, Greg, how you doing? Greg Myers, I try to teach my children to take nothing for granted. Yes, that is right. And there are a whole bunch of people that are out there that take things for granted. Like, oh yes, as soon as I graduate college, I'm going to get a job. Nobody owes you a job. Nobody owes you a job. The only thing they own, because people say this all the time. I deserve a job. From who? From who? Who told you that you will be provided a job? That's the basic thing that I have is that I don't understand is like all of the people that get out of school are like, where's my job? I just want my job, right? So they're taking that for granted. They're taking for granted their cell phones. You ever seen somebody without a cell phone today? They freak out. It's like they get withdrawals. They have no way to, it amazes me the people that are on social media that just quit. I talked to somebody the other day. I was like, hey, I didn't see you on Facebook. And they were like, oh, I'm not on Facebook. Said, Twitter? Nah. Instagram? No. Nothing. I was like, Tinder? Not even on Tinder. They're not even swiping. I was like, oh my gosh, how much less stress would that be in our life? But here's what the thing is. The people that can drop off of that, I guarantee that nobody in Generation Z is off of the internet. That's where they get their information. That's where they get their sociology. That's where they get all of their information. That's where they get all of the world presented to them. So that we have got to have the responsibility of talking to them about the existential threat and why TikTok was such a big deal about it being an American-owned company and not a Chinese-owned company. Because that information needs to be protected. Now, there are bad actors out there that want to do us harm. Optimism is our biggest thing. I believe China released the COVID virus so they could undermine our economy and further insert their control over the U.S. I believe that is true. They cannot be trusted. Don Letter says, yep. And Greg says, I feel we need to refrain from stereotyping. Correct. That would be so helpful. So what I tried to do outline today was I tried to capture a generational's ability to get information, and then why they would be hopeful, and then why that would appear to be of a different value than other generations before them have had. Because I really believe that the millennials and Generation Z, I believe that they think that they have the same, or they think that they have a different set of values than, let's say, the greatest generation. The people World War I, World War II. That they have, that for somehow the world, they have a better optimism of the world, and that other people are looking at it wrong, so they want to be heroes. I think we got plenty of heroes all the way around, everywhere from 10-year-old kids all the way up to 100-year-old men and women. The simple fact of the matter is that we all are optimistic. The question is whether that optimism puts you in more danger because you're not looking at it through the right lens. So stereotyping is the most dangerous thing that we can do. And when I talk about the generations, I'm trying not to stereotype, but there's a lot of data that suggests that there is a baseline of information and a baseline of action that can be attributed by age in 20-year segments. And that's why, all the sociologists have come up with these generational things, and that's why we got the names. It's because it's the information that they have, the information, the world in which they live, and what their future is going to look like, because it's 20 years blocks, because that's when everybody has a baby, between their age of 18 and 28. So, that's it for tonight. Thank you very much. Remember, remain optimistic. But optimistic is also very, very dangerous. And it is very, very dangerous that it applies to the world in which we live in. And that some people have to have a little bit more skepticism. And some people have to have a little bit more clearer picture of the existential threats which face each of our generations, face the United States of America, and ultimately face Middle Americans. So that's going to be it for tonight. I love you. I hope you had a great weekend. We're going to be here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night, not Thursday night. Yes, Christmas Eve. I'm going to go to church. Not Christmas Day. The day after Christmas is going to be a Sunday, so I'll be back the Monday after Christmas, but I will be here Tuesday night and Wednesday night. So, Mark Calcaterra, Bruce Lund, Don, Greg, everybody that's still here, thank you very much. Jennifer, there you go. Congratulations, Bruce, on the moose. I absolutely love that. Sherry, glad to see you. Susie, glad to have you here. Sherry Clark, Logan Calcaterra. You guys have a great night. Remember, I love you. And remember, live, laugh, love. Peace. See you, everybody. Oh, wait a minute. There's some music. And here we go.